We live in a world overflowing with noise. Notifications buzzing, texts flying, people constantly demanding our time, our presence, our attention. And somewhere in all of this, we've been conditioned to believe that giving our attention freely makes us kind, makes us valuable, makes us loved. But let me tell you something. Your attention is not just a gesture, it is power, and until you realize that, you'll keep giving away your energy to people who haven't earned a place in your world. Attention is energy. It's like sunlight. Wherever you shine it, things grow. So when you're pouring your light, your focus, your time onto someone who hasn't proven their worth, what are you growing? Often, it's not connection or love. It's entitlement. You're teaching them that your energy is easy to get. And anything that comes too easily, without effort, without intention, loses its value. Think about it. The moment you stop paying attention to someone, they notice. They feel that gap, that absence. They start asking questions, even if silently. Why isn't she texting me like before? Why doesn't she seem as eager to talk? Did I do something? That shift doesn't happen because you raised your voice. It happens because you pulled back your energy, and in that silence your power speaks. We often think we have to do more to get someone to stay, that we have to prove we're worthy by showing up constantly, checking in, saying yes even when we mean no, giving second chances even when they've shown us who they are. But that's not love. That's self-abandonment disguised as devotion. Real love doesn't beg. Real connection doesn't need to be chased. And real power never chases. It chooses. When you stop overgiving, something amazing happens. People start to feel the weight of your absence. They realize that your attention wasn't just a habit. It was a privilege. You were giving them something rare. Your focus, your time, your presence. And when that's gone, they feel it like a cold room after the fire's gone out. It makes them look at their own behavior. It makes them ask what they lost and why. But more than what they feel, what matters is what you feel. Because when you begin to protect your attention, when you stop handing it out like free samples, you start reclaiming your energy. You start feeling more grounded, more centered. You realize that not everyone deserves access to you, and that saying no isn't rejection. It's redirection toward your peace, toward your standards, toward your value. Let me be clear, this isn't about playing games. This isn't about manipulation. This is about self-respect. You're not punishing someone by stepping back. You're reminding yourself that your attention is a gift, not a guarantee. And anyone who wants it has to show up with consistency, honesty, and effort. If they can't do that, they don't get your light. Simple. Now, some people won't like it when you start pulling back, especially if they were used to getting everything from you without giving much in return. They might call you cold. They might try to guilt you into going back to your old ways, but don't fall for it. People who truly value you will never be threatened by your boundaries. They will rise to meet them. The ones who disappear, let them. Their exit is a blessing wrapped in disappointment. This kind of power isn't loud. It doesn't need a spotlight. It's quiet, calm, and unshakable. It's the power of a woman who knows what she brings to the table and isn't afraid to eat alone if the company isn't right. It's the energy of someone who's no longer afraid to lose people who were never really choosing her in the first place. When you know your worth, your attention becomes selective, and in a world where everyone is screaming to be seen, being selective is seductive. It says, I don't need you to complete me. I am already whole. But if you want to be in my world, show me why you deserve to be here. That's not arrogance, that's self-awareness, that's grace, that's strength. So if you're wondering whether pulling back your attention will make him think about you, yes, it will. But more importantly, it'll make you think about you, about what you deserve, about how much you've been giving without receiving, about how much lighter you feel when your energy is protected. Attention is power, you own it. Use it wisely, give it sparingly. And always, always remember this, the right person won't be confused by your standards. They'll be inspired by them, they'll want to meet you where you are, and they'll see your attention for what it truly is, a priceless gift. Would you like the rest of the speech expanded this way as well? There's something deeply powerful about silence, not the kind that comes from awkwardness or fear, but the intentional kind, the silence that says, I don't need to explain myself. I don't need to beg, I simply remove myself. That silence holds more weight than 1,000 words. It creates space, not just for your peace, but for his thoughts to finally echo in the emptiness you left behind. We underestimate how much people get used to our presence, how quickly they begin to take our energy for granted when we're always the one checking in, always the one filling the pauses, always the one smoothing over the tension. But when you go quiet, not with anger, not with malice, but with calm clarity, you create a shift. He starts to notice the stillness. He starts to feel the void, and in that void, your absence becomes louder than your words ever were. You're not being petty, you're not playing games, you're giving him the one thing most people run from, space, and in that space, he finally has time to think, really think, about what you meant, about what you brought into his life, about how easily he dismissed your effort when it was constantly available. Because here's the truth, people only start to value what they can't immediately access. While you were always there applying instantly, calling first, planning ahead, he may have felt in control. But when your phone goes quiet, when your energy retreats, he's left with nothing but his own mind, and the mind, when left unchecked, doesn't like silence. It fills it with questions, with wonder, with memories. He starts playing back your last conversation. He wonders if you're done, if you're moving on, if someone else has your attention now. Silence breeds mystery, and mystery breeds obsession. It makes him realize that your world is bigger than just him, that your time is too precious to be wasted on someone who hasn't stepped up. And once that hits, once he realizes that he doesn't know where he stands anymore, his desire to understand you, to re-engage with you, starts growing. Not because you forced it, not because you asked for it, but because he's finally sitting with the consequences of your withdrawal. Now let me be clear, your silence isn't a punishment, it's a boundary. It's a declaration that says, I will not exhaust myself trying to be understood by someone who chooses not to listen. It's the difference between begging and receiving, between proving and observing. When you go quiet, you're allowing him to come to his own realizations, and if he doesn't, that silence gave you your answer too. You're not shutting down, you're stepping back to protect your energy. You're choosing yourself, and in doing so, you're sending a powerful message. I don't need to convince you of my worth. If you see it, act like it. If you don't, I will quietly exit, and this silence, it does something else. It gives you space to hear yourself again. Sometimes we're so busy trying to maintain a connection that we forget to ask ourselves if that connection is even fulfilling us. In your silence, your own thoughts become clearer. You start asking better questions. Am I really being respected? Am I being emotionally fed? Am I showing up for someone who shows up for me? Often, the silence you offer someone else turns into the clarity you were craving all along. You'll notice, too, that when you stop giving energy to the wrong places, the right ones begin to open up. You begin to glow differently. Your time gets filled with people who do appreciate you. Your peace becomes your new standard. And that man, the one who got so used to your constant affection, starts to feel the weight of your silence, not because he misses noise, but because he misses you, your voice, your warmth, your presence. The energy that used to wrap around him without him even realizing it was there. Day by day, that silence makes its mark. At first, he may pretend not to notice. Pride has a funny way of keeping people from reaching out. But eventually, that silence breaks through the walls of ego, because ego doesn't sleep at night, regret does, and when the calls stop coming, when the long texts are no longer there, when your name stops appearing on his phone, he will feel it. And not just emotionally, he'll feel it physically, like a missing heartbeat in a song that used to play just right. Let him sit in that silence. Don't rush to fill the void. Don't explain yourself. Because if he can't see your value without you shouting it, he was never truly listening to begin with. In that stillness, in that pause, you reclaim something far more precious than attention. You reclaim your peace. And from that place of peace, you will only entertain what feels aligned, what feels mutual, what feels worthy of your presence. Your silence is not empty. It's full of truth, full of strength, full of self-love. Let him hear it. There is something undeniably magnetic about a woman who knows how to let go, not out of bitterness, not out of spite, but from a place of deep self-trust. A woman who does not cling, who does not chase, who is not afraid to walk away, radiates a kind of power that draws people in without even trying. That is the essence of detachment, and believe me when I say, that is what makes her irresistible. Detachment isn't coldness. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's not about putting up walls. Detachment is about emotional independence. It's the quiet confidence of knowing that your happiness, your peace, your sense of worth is not tied to any person, outcome, or relationship. It's the decision to stop making someone else's behavior the compass for your self-esteem. When you embody that energy, you stand out, not because you're trying to, but because you're not. We've been told the lie that to be loved, we must constantly prove ourselves. That we must always be available, always be agreeable, always be doing more to keep their interest. But here's the truth no one tells you neediness repels. Desperation dilutes attraction. The more you try to convince someone to stay, the more you push them away. Because desire doesn't come from pressure, it comes from space, and detachment creates that space effortlessly. When you're detached, you no longer play tug-of war with someone's attention. You're not trying to force them to choose you. You've already chosen yourself, and that kind of self-assurance is rare. It tells the world, I'm not afraid of being alone. I'm afraid of settling for less than I deserve. That mindset changes the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you enter a room. People feel that energy before you say a word, and yes, he feels it too. He notices when your validation no longer revolves around his words. He sees that you're not checking your phone every 5 minutes, that you're not available at his convenience anymore. At first, he may not understand it. He might think you've changed, but deep down he feels it. He feels that shift, and in that shift, curiosity begins to bloom. Why is she so calm? Why isn't she chasing anymore? Has she moved on? That's the power of detachment. It flips the dynamic without you saying a single thing. You're not trying to teach him a lesson. You're just living your life, placing your energy where it's appreciated, and refusing to waste time on emotional guessing games. That shift in posture, in attitude, in how you prioritize your own joy, it's irresistible. Because people can't look away from someone who doesn't need them to look in the first place. You see, when you're attached to someone in an unhealthy way, you give them too much control. Your mood starts depending on their attention. Your confidence fluctuates based on how often they reach out. You become reactive, anxious, and ultimately drained. But detachment takes all of that back. It's the silent reclaiming of your emotional freedom. You stop depending, you stop waiting, you stop needing, and suddenly you become the prize. A detached woman is not emotionless. She feels everything deeply, but she's mastered the art of choosing herself even when her heart wants to hold on. She doesn't beg, she doesn't settle for breadcrumbs, she doesn't justify poor behavior just to maintain a connection, and this boundary, this internal strength, it acts like a magnet, not because she's trying to attract, but because she's not willing to lose herself for anyone. When a man realizes you're not moved by his silence anymore, that you're not sitting there hoping he texts, that you're not measuring your worth by how much effort he puts in today, that's when he begins to see you differently, not as someone he can take for granted, but as someone who holds standards, someone he might actually lose. That possibility, that he could lose access to you, is what sparks the obsession, and not because you withheld love, but because you refused to perform for it. You let him come to his own conclusions in his own time, and you continued living your life in the meantime. You didn't wait, You evolved. Detachment isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self-respect. It's knowing that you can care deeply and still walk away if your peace is at stake. It's loving someone without letting them become your oxygen. That balance, that emotional clarity, makes you glow in ways that makeup never could. It makes you walk taller, speak softer, and move through the world like a woman who's full, not looking to be filled. And that, more than anything else, is what makes him obsessed. Because while others are trying to impress, you're just being. While others are seeking validation, you're centered in your own truth. And in a world of noise and desperation, a woman who is detached, yet still open, still kind, still whole is unforgettable. He won't stop thinking about you, not because you tried to make him, but because your detachment made space for him to realize what he's losing. And if he never does, that's fine too, because the one who's meant for you will never require you to lose yourself just to be seen. Would you like me to now expand the final section, make him feel the loss, without saying a word? There comes a moment when words no longer serve, when explanations feel like you're repeating yourself to someone who was never really listening. When your value has been spoken, shown, lived, and still ignored, that is the moment you stop speaking and you start walking, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, and in that quiet exit, in your decision to no longer argue for your worth, you deliver the loudest message he'll ever receive. Because nothing makes a man feel the loss like your absence does, your silence, your peace, the space where your love used to live. And it doesn't require a final text, a tearful call, or some speech that ends with, "You'll regret this." No, you don't need to say a single word, because when you leave, really leave, with your energy, your effort, your attention, he will feel it. At first he might not. He might think you're just giving him space. That you'll be back. After all, you always were. You forgave. You waited. You tried. But not this time. This time, you're done handing your soul to someone who only knew how to borrow it. And as the days pass, that confidence, that absence, that unfamiliar silence, it starts to echo in his mind, in his routine, in the empty parts of his life where you used to be. You see, your presence wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. You brought light into his world, softness to his edges, consistency to his chaos. He didn't realize it then, because he assumed you'd always be around. But now that you're gone, he begins to notice all the ways you filled the gaps, the check-in messages, the warmth in your tone, the way you remembered the little things he didn't think mattered, the laughter, the advice, the unconditional belief in him gone, and you didn't leave in anger, you didn't explode, you didn't try to hurt him. That's what makes the loss cut deeper, because it wasn't punishment. It was clarity. You finally realized that staying was costing you more than leaving ever would. That love shouldn't feel like begging. That showing up for someone who keeps disappearing is emotional self-harm, so you stopped, and in doing so you let him face himself, alone. Now he's left with his thoughts, with all the things he took for granted. He scrolls through your old messages, looks at the photos you're no longer tagging him in, wonders if you've moved on, wonders who's getting the attention he once thought was guaranteed. That doubt, that jealousy, that confusion, it brews slowly. Not because you tried to make him feel it, but because your distance holds more weight than your words ever did. This is what emotional consequence looks like. Not revenge, not manipulation, just the natural result of being careless with someone who genuinely loved you. The cost of comfort. He got used to your loyalty, your effort, your love, without realizing that love has limits, that even the softest woman can become silent when she's had enough. And here's the most beautiful part. You didn't chase closure. You didn't wait around to be chosen. You became your own closure. You chose yourself. And that choice, though difficult, planted a new kind of power in you. A power that doesn't yell, it doesn't beg, it doesn't prove, it simply walks away from what doesn't reciprocate. Now you're glowing differently. You're focused on your growth. You're reconnecting with yourself, with your joy, with the parts of you that had been dimmed by trying to hold onto something one-sided. You've stopped over-explaining. You've stopped wondering if you were too much. You weren't. You were just too much for someone too small to handle real love. He'll notice that you're no longer watching his stories, no longer commenting, no longer available, and that slow realization will hit harder than anything you could have said. Because when someone is used to you always being there, your absence doesn't just feel like space, it feels like loss. Not just of a person, but of an entire energy that cannot be replicated. And let's be honest, he might reach out. He might test the waters, send that "hey, just checking in" a message, try to lure you back with sweet nothings. But you'll feel the difference in your bones. You're not that same girl anymore. You've seen what staying too long does to your spirit, and the woman he once had access to, she doesn't live at that address anymore. You don't need to tell him you're done. He'll feel it every time he remembers how you used to love him and realizes you're not loving him like that anymore. Every time he wonders where you went and remembers that you gave him chances, that you showed up until it broke your heart to stay, and you're not bitter, you're better, not because he lost you, but because you found you. So remember this, you don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to hurt him to show him what he lost. All you have to do is leave with grace, move in silence, heal in private, let your peace be your closure, and let your absence do what your presence couldn't.